Hello and welcome to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered. My name is Mark and today's pod is the instant reaction to Arsenal 3, Preston 0. It is 9:45, so I've literally just finished watching the game, watching Arsenal dispatch Championship side Preston away from home. And we will get straight on with the lineup and the analysis and all the things we like to bring you here at Arsenal Unfiltered when we react to a game. But first and foremost, got to give a big shout out to those away fans, because I don't think I heard a single Preston song all night. And it's a Wednesday evening kickoff, a long way away from London, and it would have been very easy to not be quite as enthusiastic as those guys were, and I only heard Arsenal songs all night. They did a fantastic job supporting the team, even though the team barely stepped out of second gear, and we'll come on to that and how strange it is to watch your team play in second gear. But no, absolutely fantastic work from the away fans, and I think they did the Arsenal, they did the Arsenal proud, which is great. So on with the lineup for this game and general thoughts. I think everyone was expecting, all us Arsenal fans were expecting some rotation. We were probably expecting us to see some names who we very rarely see on the team sheet. And that is not the direction Mikel Arteta went in. In typical Mikel Arteta style, he went stronger than we wanted him to. He went stronger than we all thought he would. Realistically, the only player I think we were, was new to our eyes was Tommy Setford in goal. The ones that really surprised me that were playing were Gabriel Martinelli and Jurrien Timber. Now, Jurrien Timber obviously only ended up playing 45 minutes, and Thomas Partey came on to replace him at half-time. But I was really surprised at the time to see him start the game, having come off against Liverpool. We thought there might be some sort of injury there. Mikel Arteta confirmed before this game, no, it was just tiredness. And I wonder if that 45 minutes was just to build Jurrien Timber's fitness back up. That may be why he had to come off against Liverpool. He just wasn't fit enough to do the 90. And is 45 minutes midweek part of the plan? I'm presuming it's very similar for some of the other first-team players we saw. Mikel Merino, Gabriel Martinelli. William Saliba obviously was sat down over the weekend, so wasn't surprised to see him do the 90. But obviously Gabriel Martinelli and Mikel Merino also match shared with Bukayo Saka and Mikel Merino, and Kai Havertz respectively. So yeah, really good to see Tommy Setford though for the first time. We'll talk about him and Aidan Heaven as our kind of proper debutants in a little while, but no, a very strong lineup, a shockingly strong lineup. Zinchenko back in the team. I think we were all expecting to see Lewis Skelly, but I can understand why Zinchenko's in there. I think, especially when Lewis Skelly has been coming on in the Premier League, in the Champions League ahead of Zinchenko, it was good to give Zinchenko that game time and good to just say to him, you know what, you're still involved, you're still part of it. And yeah, he might be needed at some point. I would have thought he would have been needed in the Liverpool game when Timber came off from left back, but he might be needed, and this is a good opportunity for him to get some minutes in his legs as well. As we move on to the game, we started okay, but really it came alive with the Gabriel Jesus goal, and such a long time since I've been able to talk about a Gabriel Jesus goal, or any of us have been able to comment on one. Fantastic to see him get there. It's a good finish. Obviously, the free kick came across from Gabriel Martinelli. Kivior cushion header down, and an instinctive volleyed finish from Gabriel Jesus. And really, after that, it looked like it had lifted a weight off of him, didn't it? That was the moment where his game changed, because there were a couple of moments for Gabriel Jesus prior to that where, again, it looked like he was trying to force it. And we've seen this a number of times where there's a simple ball on, or there seems to be an opportunity to take a pot shot, take a half chance, and he tries to force a perfect result, tries to force a perfect opportunity for a shot, tries to beat a man rather than playing the simple pass. And he's been a frustrating watch. And he started this game in a similar way. There was a moment where he attempted a very complicated turn around one of the Preston players. And I just thought, you can just bounce past it at this point. And this was probably 10 or 15 minutes in. Just bounce past it. You don't need to do that. Realistically, in that period of the game, Preston were nowhere near us. Couldn't get their foot on the ball. Couldn't get any foothold in the game. And I think we didn't need to be forcing anything. From the point he scored his goal, like I say, great finish. He looked like a changed man. There were a couple of points again where I think he, maybe prior to the goal, would have taken someone on when he didn't need to, risked losing the ball, risked a turnover when we weren't set for our attack. And all of a sudden, he looked less anxious. He had his goal and he stopped doing that. So fantastic news. And hopefully, I know it's only against Preston. I know that. But hopefully that is a start, a chance for him to say, okay, I've got the goal. Finally, I've got the goal. I can now move on. I can now play as I used to play, as we loved Gabriel Jesus when he first arrived. Can he now get back to that? Is this the platform to start from? I really hope so. Another player who scored in the first half was Ethan Nwaneri. He'd had a big chance prior to this when Mikel Merino kind of set him up. It was a poor set from Mikel Merino, but as the commentator says, Nwaneri just kind of put it straight at the keeper. So I was really glad to see him get his goal, and what a goal. A Bukayo Saka-esque finish in the way that he allows the ball to come across his body, get himself set onto that left foot and whip it into the top corner. It was a brilliant goal. Really opened his body absolutely brilliantly. And one thing I thought was really interesting about Ethan Nwaneri today is the amount of coaching he received from Jorginho. You can see it on the pitch. Jorginho is that coach. He's Mikel Arteta's eyes and ears when he plays, in the same way that Martin Ødegaard is. And he was really supporting Ethan Nwaneri, showing him where to stand at corners, pulling him closer. Even after the goal, he kind of gave him a bit of advice and some coaching. And it's great to see our experienced pros who have won basically everything you can win in the game to, be giving that experience, be giving those nuggets and pieces of intelligence to players like Ethan Nwaneri. That's 3 goals now for Ethan Nwaneri, 2 in the Bolton game, 1 versus Preston. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think this was a performance from him that is going to get him in the Premier League side. We all want to see him more. We all want to see him play. We all want to see him replace Martin Ødegaard in that sort of 8/10 role. However, I think he had some good moments, but did he stamp his authority on the game? Did he play his way into the team? Probably not, but I do think he did enough to keep getting off the bench, keep getting cameos, 15, 20 minutes here. And we've got a tough run of games coming up. We've got a very tough run of games coming up. 3 away games, very challenging. But we then have Nottingham Forest towards the end of November. And I wonder if we might see him for half an hour, 40 minutes there. Game state dependent, of course. But more generally on the first half, I thought we looked okay. Some nice passing. But Preston really played into our hands. And I think the commentators, certainly on Sky Sports, were talking about this. And it was quite naive from Preston, really. There was an uncoordinated press that they were putting on our defence, and we were picking our way through it time after time after time. Zinchenko was an outball. Jorginho was an outball. At every spot, they were just shuffling side to side to give the guys in that back line, Timber, Saliba and Kivior, an option. Even Timber stepped in at times. Gabriel Jesus dropped deep at times. So there were so many outballs. And rather than sitting in and making it difficult and making us play like horseshoe football, where we have to go round and restart and recycle and play round the Preston players rather than through them, they were just sort of charging at us, and allowed us to pick them off quite easily and play through them quite easily. I think we probably should have been more than 2-0 up, but like I mentioned before, the team really didn't seem to get out of second gear. So it's one of them where I'm not too worried about how many chances we were putting away, because I think It was about getting a couple of goals, getting ahead, making the game comfortable, making sure we didn't have to stretch ourselves and use players we don't want to use too early. And that's where we were. And we shouldn't really be wasting too much energy trying to get to 4, 5, 6 in, a first half in a game where we really weren't being threatened. Like I said, some changes happened at half time. So Havertz came on for Mikel Merino, Partey came on for Timber. And a little after that, at about 60 minutes, Saka came on for Gabriel Martinelli. Strange, I think I certainly as a fan was expecting maybe some more kind of protection of our first team players. But Mikel Arteta went with a game-sharing tactic. And I wonder, especially in the likes of Timber, is this about keeping them sharp, keeping them fit? Like I mentioned before, that might be why he came off against Liverpool and he needed those 45 minutes. And I think the game sharing strategy Mikel Arteta he used today will be beneficial in the long run, but I don't think it helped us today because we lost partnerships that were just starting to form on the pitch. We never really had our pairs on. We've seen Havertz and Trossard work really well together. We've seen Timber and Martinelli down the left side work really well together. We've seen Rice and Merino, Rice and Partey work well together. We never really saw those partnerships today. You could feel that. You could feel that some players were playing slightly out of position at times. So when Havertz came on, he was playing in the left 8 position rather than up top. Raheem Sterling got moved around. He was right wing, then he was left wing. I'll come on to that in a moment. And I think you could feel that disjointedness. And whilst it wasn't too prevalent or too obvious in the second half, when Preston really weren't showing up and making game of it, they improved drastically at half time. And I think it started to expose the fact that this was a bit of whilst it was a lot of first team players, it was a bit kind of put together, moulded together and adapted so that people could share minutes, protect your legs at certain points. But no, Preston did a much better job. They stopped pressing so high, which really helped them. It slowed down the way we could play through them and pick passes through their front players. We were suddenly having to play around them more, and which meant when they did win the ball back, they had options who weren't, all the way up the pitch. They had a 1-2 pass, a pass where you could play a simple ball, get a bounce back, or a pass where you could play a simple ball and there was another simple ball. You get out of that intense, tight area and suddenly there's a ball forward on. And we saw that improve a lot from Preston. So they started to get into the game a little bit more, but that didn't stop us from extending our lead. And we probably should have extended our lead a little bit more as well. So first of all, we have the Kai Havertz goal, a really good header, typical. When I say typical, it's probably what we thought Kai Havertz was bought for, box crashing. This may be what we see much more of from Mikel Merino moving forward, now that Kai Havertz is that kind of number 9 for Arsenal. I think it's a great cross from Kiwior, his second assist of the night, which is a nice little stats boost for him. I think Kiwior was a great squad player. He's probably undervalued by a lot of us as Arsenal fans. We all kind of want to see Gabriel, we want to see Saliba, we want to see Calafiori. Kiwior has been really reliable every time he's come on in an Arsenal shirt, every time he's had to start in an Arsenal shirt. He's really done a good job as that kind of next man in, and I'm glad to see him get 2 assists tonight. It's a great cross, great delivery. Kai Havertz just has to meet it and it's game over from that point of view. The keeper was never stopping it. It's a great bit of box crashing. It's a great bit of attacking intent from Havertz. So fantastic to see that. 7th goal of the season for Havertz so far. So he continues to contribute to the success of this team. And, 45 minutes in his legs as well. So whilst I would have preferred, I think, for 0, I don't know everything, and I'm sure the guys in the medical team at Arsenal have a real plan for him and how to get him to his top level. Yeah, finally, I think we had the Ethan Nwaneri chance where he hit the bar. Would have been lovely for him to get a double again, but like I mentioned when I commented on his performance earlier, I think he probably did well enough to keep keep getting in his cameos, but not well enough to impose himself on the Premier League starting 11. There was a couple of nervy moments towards the end. Not nervy in terms of the result, but nervy in terms of keeping our clean sheet. So Tommy Setford kind of flapped at a shot come cross, and it went past him. He did get a bit of a touch on it, but it went past him, and we weren't sure who was going to arrive first. It ended up being an Arsenal player. There were a couple of moments where there was an overload on the left-hand side for us, our defensive left-hand side, and I don't think we were rapidly out to deal with it. Again, this is related to the chopping and changing. Miles Lewis-Skelly was brought on at left back, and then at the point where Aidan Heaven came on, he was moved into midfield, and Aidan Heaven was centre back, Kivior was left back. We were chopping and changing. I don't think anyone really sorted out where they needed to be at that point, and that's why some of those overloads started to happen and started to present themselves down that side. That's the extent of it. I think the only thing we were worrying about is keeping our clean sheet. A word for our debutants. So Tommy Setford, I think he did okay. A couple of poor mid-range balls. He didn't really go long much, but his mid-range passing, he missed two, one to Martinelli, one to Nwaneri, left and right. He looked fairly assured with his hands, coming and claiming a couple of things. Like I said, he did flap at that kind of one save. I think he would have wanted to put a more decisive hand on it. A similar story for Aidan Heaven. Not a terrible performance, but certainly things to work on. A couple of under-hit passes early in his performance when he came on. But one really nice moment where he was getting pressed and got himself out of that little bit of trouble with a great touch turn, and then was able just to give the ball to Saliba, and we played out from there. I think the main thing is that's going to be great footage for the coaches and Carlos Cuesta to go through with those guys and show them how they can improve. So fantastic experience for them. My overall thoughts, job done really. No one injured, although I was scared for Gabriel Martinelli when he went down in the first half. But yeah, it was job done. Very strange watching your team play in second gear, and I'm just happy we're getting out of there healthy with a comfortable win. I know a lot of the other big teams have got Premier League opposition tonight. Man City and Spurs, I think, are still playing. It seems like Man U have played a wild game against Leicester. Villa have played Palace. There's lots of Premier League versus Premier League games. It's nice that we got a slightly easier one, slightly easier draw, and gives us an opportunity to manage minutes with the guys, get a job done, and move on to the next round. Let's see who we get. The draw hasn't been done at time of recording, so I'm excited to see who we get. But yeah, guys, that was another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered. If you enjoyed this episode or you've enjoyed any of the other episodes I've produced, please consider giving me a follow. It will really help the podcast grow, and I'm trying to get this community up and running, and as many people as possible to hear the Arsenal Unfiltered podcast. But thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.